In this next set of lessons, we're going to look at inventory organizations, units of measure, calendars, and flex fields. After completing this lesson, you should be able to explain the key inventory objects, the sub-inventories, locators, item organization. You should be able to describe units of measure, their classes, and base units of measure. Remember, it's all about the base. You should be able to describe unit of measure conversions. Explain what a calendar is, how to create it, and exception. Describe flex fields, segments, and value sets. And finally, account aliases and locator flex field. So we're going to start with inventory organization, sub-inventories, and locators. So an inventory organization is any place that we plan on handling, storing, consuming materials. Generally, it is going to be a manufacturing facility, warehouse, distribution center. It is a place where we are going to do receipts, cycle counts, part counting. We may do manufacturing maintenance, track the cost of the materials. An inventory org can have its own location, its own ledger, its own costing method, calendar, and items, or it can share that information across multiple orgs. So the system's really flexible. Within an inventory org, you have places to put material, generally called sub-inventories. It can be a physical or logical place to separate materials, such as raw materials, finished goods, defective materials. It can be controlled by environment. So you have things that are flammable, you want them locked down. You have things that need to be cold, they can have them in cold storage. Within a sub-inventory, you can have locators. So generally it's a row, rack, and bin. So you've been exposed to that. If you've ever been at a big box store, you ask where something is, they'll tell you what row it's on and generally about where it's at. If you have an app on your phone for some of the big box hardware stores, it'll actually tell you the row and where it is on the shelf. So same kind of principle. It allows you to manage where material is going to be. You can also have locator control for the sub-inventory or the items that go into the sub-inventory, and you can predefine where something goes. So whatever level of control you need, you can do it. Again, the sub-inventory is a uniquely defined place. It has a unique alphanumeric name. You can define the status for it, the parameters, sourcing information. You can set it up where you pull material from cases, or maybe even from pallets to cases to eaches. Really just depends on your business and what makes good business sense. Here's a rendition where you have material coming into the receiving sub-inventory. Maybe you put the raw materials in this. Raw materials, you could have locators out in the manufacturing area. So parts get manufactured. You can have an inspection sub-inventory, place where defective goods go. We used to call ours MRB, or Material Review Board. And then finished goods, close to hopefully where you're going to ship things out of. Each of these sub-inventories can have a status associated to them, and it can control what material can be transacted in and out. You can put material on hold so it doesn't go anywhere. Generally, the material that is in a specific sub-inventory will inherit the characteristics of that sub-inventory, whether it's you can pick, pack, and ship it, or something's in inspection. You may have to move it someplace else before you can ship it. If it's in defective goods, it may be on hold. You can't do anything to it until you've updated it. So it either gets reworked or scrapped. So you can manage that within a sub-inventory. Mention the locators. So that's the row, the rack, the bin. So your sub-inventories can have locator control enabled. So you can do rows or aisles. You can even worked with one customer that had the very first piece of information was the warehouse, because they had 3 huge warehouses. So it was W1, 2, or 3, and then had the row, rack, and bins. Sometimes it can be a spot out in a lot, or it might be something that's big and it's stored outside. So you may have a grid set up out there. You can set the locators up to be dynamically entered or previously defined. Dynamically entered are great when you're first setting things up, but it does lend itself to somebody fat fingering in something that you don't want in there. Whereas predefined is just that. You define it. When somebody goes to do the transaction, they pick off the list or type in something that already exists. You can use dynamic locators and then flip it to predetermined so nobody can update them later on. You can also have locators that are set as periodic, automatic replenishment locations. You can set the par level, so how many should be there. You can group them together. You can define how you want to do the replenishment, and you can default in the count type. More on that later. So within your subinventories, if you enable the locators, then when you put material away, you're going to track the locator that you're putting material in. You may have it set up so the system might even suggest where to put it, or you can say this material goes into this particular row, rack, and bin. You also may have other that are set up where you don't have locator controls, so maybe you bring things in the back door, it just gets set down, you're not tracking the locator because it's not going to be there long enough to mess with. Gets put away into its row, rack, and bin, and then you may, for your outbound side, because you have a fairly large dock, you can say it's going to go into this dock door, this dock door, this dock door. So for your locator control, you can set it to none, previously defined, dynamic entry, or you can have the item dictate that, hey, you need to track the locator control for this particular item. You can track the country of origin for materials. So on your item inventory organization parameters, there's an itty-bitty checkbox that says enable inventory tracking by country of origin. You can enable that for the org, and it'll allow you to track the country of origin when you bring material in to the organization, when you receive it, when you complete it off of a work order, you can capture it. Anytime you do a receipt cycle count, you can see it. Physical inventory, you can see it. Whenever you do issues, you may have customers that say, I want material that only comes from these countries. So if that is part of your business, then you can track it on your items. But you have to enable it for the org, and then you can turn it on for the items. Let's discuss the difference between an inventory org and an item org. An inventory org is what I've been talking about, where you're managing material, bringing things in the back door, tracking them, tracking lot numbers and serial numbers, all those fun things. The item organization is the item master. That's where we define the item information, and we do not do any transactions there. We're not doing any receipts, movements, cycle counts, any of those fun things. And they're defined two different places in the functional setup area. Additionally, you can leverage the REST services to create inventory organizations and populate the org parameters. A little more on the difference between item org and inventory org. So here you can see from a feature perspective, we're not doing any financial tracking or item org. We're not doing any transactions. We're not managing on-hand quantities. But it is a place